Okay, now for the saddest slash most enraging scenes of this season. Scenes and or topics, because it's my list and I do what I want.
We make our own rules.
Number 10 is... This is number 10 because it's a happy scene, but it also has sad undernotes, and it made me cry like a baby. And that is Hopper and Elle being reunited in the end. And, like, the way that he just walks in, and she just sees him standing there and just breaks down, and I'm like, whoa, you don't want a soft landing this? Like, you're gonna send the kid into shock. She thought you were dead. And, just seeing them have that father-daughter moment, because genetics means jack shit. He is her father. And the little things, like, I kept the doors open 3 inches because I never stopped believing, and he's like, it's okay, kid, it's okay. And, the little moment about your hair, my hair, your hair, I stole your look. Just so much wholesome and just so much crying. Number 9, this would fall into the most annoying, infuriating categories, and that is Hawkins is a town full of dipshit morons. It was an earthquake. Granted, a lot of them are getting the hell out of Dodge, but there's still people staying there, and everyone believes it's an earthquake. Like, you see what is happening. This is not an earthquake. Earthquakes don't do this. And correct me if, no, I can't nitpick with this because I don't know. But is Indiana even in a place where you would get a fault line to have an earthquake that bad? Because I'm not sure that it is. I'm going to have to look that up, but that could be another thing. And if I'm right about that, then it's even more infuriating. But if I'm wrong about it, then so be it. But either way, that is not an earthquake. How can anyone think this was an earthquake? You don't have the army in your town because of an earthquake. I mean, okay, yeah, I guess they probably have some sort of military force there to, block off the crevices and make sure no one, was roaming around there or falling in. But that sort of military presence and, this is not an earthquake!
Moron! Moron! Hey, moron!
And just the fact that everyone in this town, except for officers Doolittle and Dipshit, who somehow became, these two didn't know their ass from their elbow in the previous seasons, and they couldn't find a better sheriff? Granted, the smarter of the two did get the job, but still, anyways, they are the smartest people in this town, and that is scary, because everyone else listens to Jason, whose best explanation for all the crazy shit happening in this town is, it was demons. And the whole town is just like, yep, I guess it's demons. And, this isn't even the Bible Belt, people! And then, they find it justified to go after little kids just because they decide to play a board game? And somehow it's all their fault because it's a cult, and yep, it's demons, and that makes perfect sense. And, oh my god, no one even tries to come up with a better explanation or be more reasonable. It's just... This town is full of morons. It's a miracle more of them didn't die. I mean, I'll give a little bit of a pass to any of them that fled the town, but anyone who's staying deserves to die. The only people I would give a pass for staying is, the families involved with the main characters, because, some of them weren't back and they had to stay there for their kids to come back, or they might have to stay there because they're involved in a greater part of this and need, their kids need to stay for them to rectify this, even though they don't really know that, and maybe they can't know that, I don't know. But anyone who isn't involved with the main characters and didn't have a real reason to stay, the people going into that church at the end with, like, the big red-painted, hand-painted sign, the end is nigh. Do not go to church. By all means, pray, but do it while you're getting the hell out of Dodge. Oh my God. Number 8 is something I just have written down as on my list as the Angela thing. In the grand scheme of things, this one isn't really that important, but it annoys the hell out of me, okay? I don't think there's anyone who didn't hate Angela's guts because, everyone knows, everyone has dealt with an Angela in their life before. My issue with it is how over the top everyone's reaction was, both within show, and there's probably a lot of people who share my general opinion on this fact, but there's also a fair amount of people who disapprove of Elle's reactions. I'm going to preface this by saying this. I don't condone violence, but sometimes violence is the answer. I'm sorry. That bitch got what was coming to her. If I were there, I'd pat Elle on the back, give her a high five, and be like, "You go, girl!" Like, woo! Yeah, I mean, she got what was coming to her. Maybe this will teach her a lesson, and I'm sorry, there is no way that, did you know that she had a 2nd grade concussion, or whatever it is? Bullshit! Like, she was not hit that hard. That was not that serious of an injury. Jonathan and Argyle have the best outlook on that, and this, that drama queen will be fine. That is 100% correct. I mean, Angela's parents must know someone higher up to have Elle get this much flack for this, because shit like this happens between teenagers all the time, and nothing this severe happens. I mean, I had people in my high school who were beating each other with an inch of their life, and they just got a slap on the wrist and a warning. Angela was not that hurt, and I know it's TV and it's fake and all that, but it annoys the ever-loving shit out of me because she was not that hurt. She was milking it. I mean, she was milking that titty dry when that paramedic showed up. Like, what's your name? Angela? Where are we? We're at the skating rink, and it'll be so sad for me, and it's I'm barely even bleeding that much, and I won't even need, mommy and daddy won't even have to get me a nose job for this. So, oh my God, she was fine, for Christ's sake. Get over it.
Oh, it's killed me. It's killed me. Calm down. It's just a...
Even Mike overreacted to this moment, and you know how much I defended you know how much I defend Mike. I love that kid. But, oh my God, so blown out of proportion. I'm not going to say that Elle did nothing wrong, but her actions were 100% justified, and that little drama queen bitch got what was coming to her. Good on you. Okay, number 7 is, I'm not a huge fan of how they ended out Lucas's storyline this season. I really like his story this season, and I definitely like that he got his own little storyline of his own this season. I think it makes a lot of sense how his story went. I mean, I think in past seasons, a little more so than the others, we've seen Lucas struggle more with the general outlook that they have in their community, that their friend group have in their community. So I think it makes perfect sense that he would be the one to kind of stray away from the main group and try to get in with more of the popular crowd. I mean, he wasn't quite in the right place, I do like the way that they have him come back to the original group, and they have him realize that he wasn't quite thinking the right way, and that it doesn't really matter that he's not popular, and all that matters is his friends and who he really cares about and who really cares about him. But I don't like the way they ended it. Like, the scene in the attic of the Creel house, I feel like it would have been better if instead of having this, fighting monologue with Jason, the scene would have been better panned out between Lucas talking with his friends, with, Mike and Dustin and everyone, and, telling them, I was wrong. I thought I wanted all of this. I thought I wanted to be popular. I thought I wanted to be normal, but it turns out that normal is just a raging psychopath, and then, somewhere nearby there's a paper, a newspaper or a missing photo of Jason on it that they pan to. I think that would have been a much better way to handle that, because the scene hits a little bit empty with him just saying it to Jason, and it hits a teensy bit over dramatic for me. Either way, I definitely want to see, we do see a little bit of Lucas reconciling with his friends, but I would like to see him I want to see the topic touched on further next season. 6. This could be a hot take, but the Russian subplot was just boring as hell. It would be sad if we didn't have a plot line for Joyce and Hopper, but, honestly, I feel like the show could have done, completely without it. It definitely didn't need to be as prevalent as it was. It just lost me. Every single time they were in Russia, except for, maybe the last few scenes in the finale, just completely lost me, and it was just so freaking boring. It was dull. It was just, no, I didn't like it. And the Russian characters were far too cartoony. I mean, they feel like the villains off of Rocky and Bullwinkle. I didn't like any of it, okay? I feel like it might have been, as sad as it would have been to have Joyce and Hopper become, real background characters, English is hard, as sad as it would have been to have them become total background characters this season, I feel like it might have worked better, and we could have had some of the storylines with the kids and the teenage cast more fleshed out if we had taken the Russian subplot out. It could have been kind of interesting if instead of fleshing it out and making it as involved as they did, if they had just given, every once in a while, they'd give little glimpses into this prison or something, and just, little glimpses of a mysterious man in some sort of way, and you're thinking, maybe this is Hopper? Is this Hopper? Could it be Hopper? And then in the end, it's a grand reveal when he walks in, and you're as surprised as Elle is that he's there. I don't know. I guess that could be criticized as poor writing as well, but, I hate the Russian subplot, okay? I don't like it. If I had an option, I'd take season 4, edit all of the Russian plot out, just so I could not have that in there, and just have all of the goodness that is the other plots just streamlined without having to keep going back. Give me that. Alright. You are a stinker. Oh, I love her. Yeah, no, don't like it. Number 5, Vecna could have been a little scarier. I mean, don't get me wrong, he is scary, and I definitely wouldn't want to go up against him. I mean, I kind of have conflicting views on this. Like, on one hand, the scariest villain is someone who is human, has a human capacity, human brain, human way of thinking, because there is nothing more malicious than the human mind, or having human intention. But at the same time, the Demogorgon is scarier because it just has no rhyme or reason. There is no malicious intent. It's just an animal that just wants to kill. I mean, we now know that it does have higher reason because everything's being controlled by Vecna. But yeah, I don't know. Like, my main thing, and this I probably say this because it's been implanted in my brain by a few other creators that have this view. Vecna would have been a hell of a lot scarier if he didn't actually talk. I mean, I know that we need, like, for context and for the storyline to work, we need to have him have a voice. But think about how much creepier he would have been if he didn't actually, like, talk, but he did it all, like, telepathically. Like, every time he talks to Max, he's just walking towards her with his mouth shut, but she can hear his words in her mind, but his mouth isn't moving. That would have been creepy as hell, and I think it would have been a lot better choice for having him be a villain and be, like, totally just off the wall scary. I mean, he was scary, but for being, like, the grand final villain for Stranger Things, I feel like it was a little bit of a letdown. Yeah, I mean, they kind of outdid themselves, like, following something being scarier and following the Demogorgon is hard to beat. I think that they did a good job in outbeating Demogorgon for scariness in season 3 with, like, the melted flesh monster, but, like, Vecna is just not scarier than those two. I'm not sure. I'm not overly too critical of it. I mean, I guess I kind of am, because I've been talking about it for the last 5 minutes, but yeah, I don't know. Okay, number 4, I want to start off this by saying I truly 100% with all my heart support the LGBT community, and I have absolutely no problem with Will being gay. However, I'm not sure we needed the conflict of him being in love with Mike. I mean, I'm not sure that conflict was needed. I really love the friendship that Will and Mike had, and I don't like it potentially being ruined by this. I mean, deep down, I think, and I really hope that this doesn't ruin their friendship, but, and you know, like the same thing as I mentioned briefly earlier, I hope it doesn't ruin what Will has with Elle. It's just, like, I'm not sure that this conflict was needed. I think it would have been a lot better if the conflict here wasn't Will being in love with Mike, but if it were that Will is realizing that he's gay, and he's having a really hard time with it because it's the 80s, and in the 80s it was not okay to be gay. I mean, it's hard enough to come out as gay today, but back in the 80s, you just couldn't come out as gay. It wasn't something that you just did. And if you did, you were ostracized. And I feel like, having that be the conflict with Will, and having him be afraid that, his friends are all gonna reject him, but also really wanting to tell them because it's burdening him. Like, maybe it's just me, but I feel like that would have been a much better storyline than having the conflict be that Will is gay and intensely in love with Mike. I guess I just don't like the connotations of what could happen with him being in love with Mike. Like, for the time period, I feel like, and if this does happen, it's just gonna, like, there's already a hate train going for Mike that I don't think is warranted, but if there's a scene where Mike ends up figuring out that Will is in love with him, or if Will ends up telling him, for the time that it's in, and the fact that, it would be shocking to him, I feel like Mike could potentially have a negative reaction to that at first. I feel like he would come around. I definitely think that he would come around, and there's no way that this is going to ruin their friendship permanently. But I definitely feel like Mike could have a negative reaction or outburst upon first finding this out. And then that's just gonna, it's gonna take this slowly building hate train people have for Mike and just put it on, a crazy downhill slide, and it's just not gonna stop, and everyone's gonna be like, Mike is the worst person in the world, and
clickety, 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 clickety.
Not to mention, I don't want to see that scene, because I don't want to see Will and Mike fight, and I don't want to see Will hurt, and yeah, I feel that it would have been a lot better if the conflict was that Will is struggling with being gay and wanting acceptance, and not that he's in love with Mike. Yeah. And on top of that is, like, by all means, if it's your guilty pleasure, ship whatever the hell you want, read and even write fan fictions in your spare time, but stop acting like it's actually going to happen in the show, guys. It's not. Not because it would be a gay couple. It's because they can't break up Elle and Mike permanently. After all they've done through the previous seasons, to suddenly break up Elle and Mike and have Will and Mike get together would be, what are the words I'm looking for? It would be literary suicide. Like, they couldn't just do that and get away with it. If Elle and Mike didn't have such a strong relationship, if so much hadn't gone into building up their relationship, and if Mike didn't really have a love interest, then I'd be like, sure, go for it. That could happen. But it can't happen. It won't happen. It can't happen. Stop acting like it's going to happen or like it's supposed to happen, because it's not. And can we please stop perverting completely good platonic friendships?
With a capital P.
I mean, as much as I love my relationships, my romances, I also really love just true platonic friend love. Like, just let people be really good friends without having to make it sexual. Please. Okay. So, the Duffer Brothers and the other creators of this show have, I guess, well, maybe not broken me, but they've created a first, and it's a conundrum for me. No offense to anyone who isn't, but I'm that person who's like, I like two people together, and I cannot want that person with any other person. There's one couple that I like, and I don't stray from that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with shipping people in multiple relationships. I don't do that. Like, I don't know, I can't. Like, for me to really lock on to a couple, I've got to love what they have going on so much that I couldn't, like, their love is so good and pure that I couldn't imagine them having feelings for anyone else. So, I'm really conflicted because I was Team Jonathan from the very beginning. Hardcore Team Jonathan. At one point I hated Steve, which I think a lot of us did, but I held on to that for a little longer than other people did, just for the stubbornness of it. But, you know, like, you can't help but not like Steve. And I fought this so hard during season 4. You know, like, last season and in season 2, I liked Steve, but I still wanted him nowhere near Nancy. Because I was hardcore Team Jonathan. But now I'm conflicted, because this season, like, they're like setting it up for Nancy and Steve to get back together, and I don't completely hate it, and it's creating, like, a paradox in my brain. This has never happened before. What have they done to me? Like, I am not okay with this. Like, I don't know. I've never changed my mind about a couple before, and I've never... Oh. I don't know. And it kind of seems like they tried to make Jonathan's character a little less likable this season, and maybe that's because they want to start putting things into a trajectory where it will make it very hard for people to not want Steve and Nancy back together. And I guess this is sort of a realistic dynamic, but I don't know. It's just it's not. I'm conflicted, okay? That's all I can say about it. I don't know. And it's kind of weird because there was so much put into Nancy and Jonathan getting together, and then it's just like, well, what about Steve? Like, it hurts my brain.
And you sort of flinched or winced or
I
something.
didn't flinch or wince.
Okay.
Jonathan and I are fine.
Got it.
We're good.
Number 2 is dipping back into the saddest moments. Number 2 is Eddie's death. And of course I had to make it onto this list because Eddie was just such a wholesome character. And I think anyone who didn't really like Eddie is probably doesn't like him out of some sort of bias. But, like, because he's just such a wholesome character. And in the end, when I finished watching the season, I was okay with his death because I felt like it was suitable. Like, it was a natural conclusion for this season to come to and for his character to come to. That doesn't mean that I didn't cry like a baby and am very sad about it, but I feel like it was the right choice for the writers to make. But I mean, like, that scene is just so, oh my god. Like, if you didn't at least tear up just a little bit, there might be something wrong in your brain. You know, and it goes back to the whole Dustin doesn't have a father figure in his life, and even though Eddie isn't that much older than him, he still kind of took that place a little bit. And Gaten Matarazzo's, I'm probably butchering his last name, I'm sorry, but his performance is part of what made that scene so heartbreaking. Just, you know, Dustin scrambling to get back to him, and then he's just sitting there with him as Eddie dies, and he's just begging them, like, you have to take care of those sheep for me. He's like, no, you're gonna tell him yourself! And I'm just sitting there sobbing like a baby, so, yeah. Number 1 is Max's death scene. Now, I know that some people would probably put Eddie's death at 1 instead of 2, because technically Max isn't dead, but in terms of my connections with the characters, Max's death hit me a lot harder. And not to mention, there wasn't anything really shocking about the fact that they killed Eddie, but Max, when, like, I was so sure they wouldn't kill Max, and technically they didn't, but for a little bit there, it looked like they did, and I was just in total, utter shock. And, like, these writers, they know how to get to you, man, because that scene and the dialogue that goes on during it is just, you know that they were tweaking this to get it just right to make people, bawl their eyes out, because, you know, I feel like there's a lot of other films or, directors or writers or something that would have done this scene in a very different way that wouldn't have been as impactful, but the dialogue that takes place between Lucas and Max in those final moments, and just like the blood on her face, and she's just staring into nothingness, and her eyes are all clouded over, and the lines, I can't see or feel anything, and just, I don't want to die, I'm not ready to die, and Lucas is just, you're not gonna die, just hang on, you're not gonna die. And, Max is a very tough character, and having her be there so vulnerable and saying, I'm so scared, I don't want to die, that is the kind of thing that hits me right here, and I still can't watch that scene without tearing up a little bit. It's that kind of masochistic thing, like, it's a scene that I like because it's done so well, but it is so sad and just, but it was done so well. And then, the different points of view of Max and Lucas being there, and then having Elle be there in the void and holding her hand and crying there with them. Just, oh my god, so sad, but done so incredibly well. I mean, I definitely, have questions about exactly what happened there, about, like, what kind of ability does Elle have that helped Max come back? I definitely want to look more into that and learn more about that. And I'm definitely, like, I think the cliffhanger was necessary, but that doesn't mean I have to like it. Because it's like, you know, like it's almost worse than if they left it with us thinking Max was dead. Now she's just in limbo, which part of me thinks that they can't really just have her die, but, like, maybe they can? I don't want it to happen. I'm curious to see where next season is going to start for Max. I mean, I'm assuming she'll start off next season still in the coma, and, like, what her role in next season is going to be, and what's going to happen to her. Okay, so those are my top 10 best and worst moments and concepts and all that for Stranger Things 4. I'm definitely excited to see the next season. I mean, I'm one of those people who, like, if they're going to do a good job with it, I'd rather wait for it for longer than have them not do such a good job with it and have it sooner. So, I mean, I don't want to wait as long as we did for season 3, but I think, you know, like, there's obvious reasons that went into why we waited so long for season 3. Why we waited so long for season 4, Jesus Christ. My brain is disintegrating, so yeah, I'm going to shut up now because if I don't stop talking, I never will. Yeah, thanks for giving me a platform to drone on literally endlessly about this crap because my family is sick of hearing of it. Yeah, I'm gonna go.